Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Katie Moro. I am Vice President of Data Partnerships here at Amadeus Hospitality, working on the BI product team. I am very excited to be here to take you through some forward-looking data trends and then also review some results of our recent travel technology investment trends report and talk about what is this, taking this data and combining it with the future of technology, what does that look like for us as hoteliers? So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So first, we're going to take a look at hotel market trends. So this is using our Demand 360 data. So this is our forward on the books data that we collect from about 40,000 hotels globally. Today, we'll be focused on North America, and we'll talk about what the rest of 2024 looks like. I think that I say this often, that one day I hope to not talk about 2019 anymore, but we will take it for today and we'll leave it in the slides, but mostly focused on how 2024 is shaping up compared to last year, especially because North America has come so far post-pandemic. It's really, I think, fine to compare it to last year. So I've said at a couple of things as we led into 2024 that April looked like a strong month overall. And on the next slide, you'll see that was led by group. And that does have something to do with the Easter holiday shifting into the last week of March. But April was definitely a very strong month. But as you look out into the future through the rest of the year, overall, we're pretty much on pace to last year with a little bit of a dip in the July timeframe. And I think that that's probably due to some leisure uncertainty as we head into the summer months. But you can see here from a group pace perspective, again, I talked about that April timeframe and even May into June, very strong compared to last year. And pre-pandemic, we talked all the time about group really setting the stage and group compression, allowing hotels to be able to better position themselves in the leisure and transient business. And so seeing that strong group demand as we go into June is really exciting, especially over that summer period, where hopefully we'll start to see some increased demand coming into the markets in North America. From a segmentation perspective, so we take all of this data and align all of our participants into these segments that you see here. So if you take a look at 2024 being led by group as a percentage of all of the different segments, retail still pretty strong, not as strong as last year, but just down 1 percentage point where you see it kind of shifted a little bit into discount. And I think that's probably because we're seeing a little bit of decline in demand on the leisure side. So the rates may have to shift a little bit at each individual property. Negotiated business, of course, has declined since 2019, still looking pretty flat to last year, but we know that RFP season is really going to start to heat up soon. And I think that there's a lot more focus on corporate business and how maybe with leisure decline, we're going to start to make up for some of those gaps through corporate travel. So I think it's something that you should be paying attention to, looking at what companies are booking into your market. Are you getting your share of the business? And what decisions do you need to make differently to be able to grow in the negotiated segment as we head into the fall and then specifically for next year once RFP season is over. Then we take a look here from a channel perspective. Listen, the one thing I think that came out of the pandemic was the increase of bookings on brand.com, which is, a fantastic trend to see. So pre-pandemic, you can see brand.com was about 30% of the mix, but in 2023 and 2024, you're seeing that at 35%. So for us, I think that's a great thing to see. The GDS has declined a little bit due to that corporate travel, but still about 11% of the pie. And that direct business is typically group, and so it pretty much aligns with what we saw as a breakdown in group on the prior slide. From a lead time perspective, so we know that during the pandemic, we saw that lead time really shrink down, and you can see that we're back to kind of where we were pre-pandemic, maybe a little bit more in that 0 to 7 day booking window, but you're starting to see, again, that lead time lengthen out a little bit. This is just transient, so you don't see that group bookings, which obviously come a little bit further out, but you do see more and more business in the 60 61 plus days, as well as the 15 to 30, still pretty strong, very close to 2019 numbers. So you do see a little bit more advanced booking, which is great from an operational perspective. But of course, as you look in that 0 to 7 day booking window, you still see that 52% of all bookings are coming in the week for the week. So again, something you need to pay attention to in your individual markets to make sure that you're staffed properly and can support that last minute demand. Now, when I come into looking at luxury and upper upscale only, you can see it kind of aligns pretty closely with the overall there, with 2024 in April much stronger, but still pacing behind 2019. So then from a group perspective, again, this is still aligning quite nicely with the overall numbers there. April, May, and June, very strong compared to last year from a group perspective. So very good to see again as we go into those summer months, and definitely positive even into the fall, looking at August and September, definitely seeing a little bit more strength compared to 2023 group on the books in the luxury and upper upscale segments. So this is again focused on luxury and upper upscale. So you see a little bit more strength in group compared to what we saw overall for all hotels combined. Again, that negotiated business, which is typically a big driver of business in this segment, is down a little bit compared to pre-pandemic. But again, something let's pay attention to as we get into RFP season. And then the channel breakdown here, again, you see that brand.com a little bit lower than the overall numbers that we discussed, but still very strong compared to pre-pandemic, and something, again, very positive to see. So looking at the lead time for the higher end actually looks much better than what we saw overall. So you can see that 61 plus day lead time pretty strong there at 17% back to 2019 numbers. And you see less percentage of the bookings in the luxury and upper upscale segment coming in the week for the week. So if you remember overall, it was about 52% in 2024, and here it's only at 40%. So again, gives better time for operational efficiencies and making sure you're staffed properly to be able to support the guest in this type of high-end segment. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the airline data. So Amadeus offers 4 different types of airline data. So we have our search data. You can look at the booking data. So this is bookings made through the 3 major GDSs. You see a traffic option here that is actually a forecast that we put in place to talk about what we think the air traffic will look like as we move into future months. And then lastly, the scheduled data. So how much capacity is scheduled into and out of a market for any given day, which we pull that data from Amadeus, OAG as well. So the schedule is very important because if there is not enough capacity going into the market, then you know that there'll be limited demand. So it's definitely important to understand that. And then, of course, to be able to understand what demand is coming in, the search, and what bookings are being made into your destination. So today we'll just take a quick look here for airline inbound into the United States. So this is searched data and booked data for June of 2024. So you can see the top 2 searched and booked stayed the same, and that is London and Toronto coming into the United States. And then here, if we're looking at just the search data for June, and now we're comparing it to last year, again, London and Toronto are the same. You can see here that Paris has gone from number 3 in 2023, has gone down to number 4 in 2024. So it has gone down a little bit in its position as far as people searching in Paris to come to the United States. And you can see as a side note on the side here, Vancouver was not among the top 10 last year, but made the list for June 2024, while San Juan fell off. So for Vancouver, maybe people weren't looking to come into the United States in June of 2023, but now we're searching to maybe make that trip down across the border into the United States. So now I want to take just a moment to talk about the Travel Technology Investment Trends Report that we recently conducted. So we just talked about a lot of data, but what does that mean? How do you utilize this data? And I think it's a very interesting transition to now talk about what were some of the results of the survey. We interviewed about 100 senior hospitality leaders from properties, management companies, and you can see that the 10 countries that we did this survey in. And so what does this mean? Where are hotels looking to spend their money over the next couple of years? What is their focus area? And how does data play a big part of that? So I just want to give a couple key points of the results. This is available for viewing overall. You can look at the whole report, but I think some of these really tie in nicely to some of the data that we just discussed. So when we talk about all of the demand data that we looked at, right, being able to see by segment, by channel, how are people booking into your competition? How are you differentiating what you're doing compared to your competition to be able to drive more business? How are you looking at increasing your margins and occupancy, right? What is that shift that you have to make to be able to best position yourself against competition out in the market when you're thinking about what is your distribution strategy, what is your pricing, all of these things, right? So I think that you people, this is how we want to differentiate ourselves. This is what we want to increase efficiencies around. So how do we do that using data? And I think that this ties really nicely to the types of data sets that we're looking at and where are you focused, right? You maybe need to stop and think about as we move into the second half of the year, what's really important and how we're using data to support the different decisions that you have to make. And then what I look at from an investment standpoint. So it's interesting, right? Because most important technology area over the next 12 months and then the next 5 years. So I think for me, obviously, always the hot topic right now, AI and machine learning. It's the most important over the next 12 months, I think, because it's new and people are trying to understand how are they going to invest in this? How is it going to impact my day-to-day business in the hotel? But then over the next 5 years, maybe it's not the top. It's right there in that 30%, right in the middle. So I think people want to look at it now. How is it going to be impacting me right now because it's brand new? But over the next 5 years, how does it change? How does it become maybe just part of what we're doing? And maybe there's not as many changes. So it's not a technology that I'm going to be looking as much to invest in. But when you think about how this again ties back to data, AI, chatbots, machine learning, data analytics, technology across the spectrum of all of your data sets, this is where it's really critical, right? We have so much data in our industry, and it's all important in certain situations. But how do we take accurate data aligned across all of our different types of hotels, locations of hotels, all of these different variances that you see if you're a management company with different hotels within your portfolio? How do you take all of that and put it into a system that makes smart decisions and recommendations about how you should be best running your business? So I think that this is something you need to think about as you're looking at investing in technology. It's not only the technology piece that's critical, it's the data that's being input into the technology as well, because that is the way that the technology will function the best. So how are you going to take the data and the technology to make sure that you're making the best investment for your properties? So that's really it. I think I just wanted to, again, tie that data back to technology and how really those two pieces together are critical in the future of your success. And if you have any interest in pulling any data about the United States overall or the world overall or top 50 markets, you can scan the QR code here, and it will take you to our complimentary market insights page where you can find further information. I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and look forward to talking to you soon.